Shabbat Shalom. Good morning, everyone. I am Rabbi Jenny Greenspan for Congregation Beth-El here in Indianapolis. This morning we are starting a little bit earlier than usual since we'll be doing a Tat Shabbat program at our normal time. So I hope some of you still catch the notification or saw the announcements and can join me right now. And if not, I will, of course, still be here when you are ready in a little bit. We just won't get to interact as much in the comments. But I see I've got a few of us, so I'm glad that we are able to gather this morning and do a little bit of learning about this week's Torah portion, Parashat Vayera, which is of course, in the book of Genesis. If you'd like to follow along on the PDF, someone let me know last week it's not as clear where it might be. So I'll say Shabbat Shalom and good morning so far to Marty Lip and to Phyllis Luger. And for those who are trying to find, and Alan Hamburg, Shabbat Shalom, good morning. For those trying to find our Etz Chaim PDFs where we've had it each week, if you go to our website, bez613.org, at the top, one of your options will say worship, and the very first option underneath that menu will say virtual Shabbat. If you select that and go onto that page, you'll see the times and the links to actually join us for various Shabbat activities. And then if you scroll down below, you'll see the resources that you can download from there. So when you go to the Torah Talk one, there's a link to the right that says Etz Chaim. And that is where we've been putting the Torah portion each week. So I will give us a moment to go ahead and go find that PDF of Parashat Vayera. From our Etz Chaim Chumash, from the red Chumash that we would frequently use in our building. If you have a copy of it, you can pull it out. I'm going to be jumping around in this Torah portion a fair amount this morning. So if you want to take a look, just go ahead and you'll scroll through with me. We're actually going to start at the end of what I think is a story and then go back to the beginning of it. So I'll say good morning and Shabbat Shalom. Also welcome to Cheryl too. So good to see you each week as well. And I'm glad I've still got a few of us joined on the earlier end. So let's go ahead and get started. And Shabbat Shalom to Jim Roth. Let's see, if you are using the PDF or the physical Etz Chaim Chumash, I'm going to start on page 112. If you are using a different version of our Torah text, I will be starting on Genesis chapter 21, which is actually the Torah reading we have for the first day of Rosh Hashanah. The second day Torah reading for Rosh Hashanah is also in this week's Torah portion. But I wanted to focus on, you've seen me do this before. As we go through, we're going to look at a particular shoresh, a particular root, this time tzachak, which is tzadi chet kuf. Tzachak generally means laughter. It might also look familiar because if you put a yud on the front of it, it would say Yitzchak, which is our forefather Isaac. And so this Torah portion, has 6 of the 11 times that laughter is mentioned throughout the Torah. So laughter features pretty heavily in this particular Torah portion. One took place toward the end of last week's Torah portion, and then 2 more will exist later on in the book of Genesis, closer to the Joseph story, and 1 in the book of Exodus, actually attached to the golden calf. So I actually want to explore a little bit of how laughter works throughout the Torah, but especially in our Torah portion, because I think our Torah portion has hidden within it a pretty important warning about laughter. So for a moment, before I jump in, I want to give us a moment to think about all of the reasons that we laugh in life. When do you laugh? Most often we laugh when we think something is funny, when we hear a good joke. We in this community are accustomed to getting to laugh at Rabbi Dennis's constant witty puns. We get to laugh with him, so we laugh at jokes. Sometimes we laugh to alleviate tension. Sometimes we laugh to create tension. Sometimes we laugh out of judgment. Sometimes we laugh to create intimacy. Sometimes we laugh because we are just surprised at something that has happened. Whether it's good news or bad news, we'll sometimes laugh in surprise at news. Sometimes we laugh because other people around us are laughing and we're not really sure why. Sometimes we will laugh to initiate intimacy. There are all kinds of reasons that we as human beings laugh. And I'm sure you can think of even more, because we laugh when we're happy, when we're sad. We laugh when we want to create or diffuse tension. We laugh when we hear good news and bad news, all kinds of different reasons that people laugh. And I was looking into the word of laughter, and I came across an older article from Psychology Today by Robert Provine, who said, the article was called "The Science of Laughter." So most of the time, the most common reason that human beings laugh is because we are surprised or want to create connection with other human beings. Laughter tends to be virtually uncontrollable. It's really difficult to fake credibly. And it is almost always done in the presence of other human beings, or at least in interaction with other human beings. I don't know if you've ever noticed, if you're watching a really good comedy by yourself at home on your Netflix and it's just you at home, you might not laugh as often as if you're watching that same show with someone else. Because often laughter is a signal to other people that we are engaged and emotionally present. So there are all kinds of reasons that we laugh. And so now I want to take a look at some of the laughter in our Torah portion. I'm going to start at the end of our story and go back to the beginning and see if they tie back together well. So chapter 21, God took note of Sarah as God had promised, and God did for Sarah what was promised. Sarah conceived and bore a son to Abraham in his old age. At the set time which God had spoken, Abraham gave his newborn son, whom Sarah had borne him, the name of Yitzchak. That shoresh is in there. And when his son Isaac was 8 days old, Abraham circumcised him, as God had commanded. Now Abraham was 100 years old when his son Yitzchak, Isaac, was born. And Sarah said, God has brought me schok, laughter. Everyone who hears me, Yitzchak li, will laugh with me, at me, to me. And she added, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah could suckle children? Yet I have borne a son in his old age. For context, Sarah is supposed to be 90 years old here, and Abraham 100. The child grew up and was weaned, and Abraham held a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. Sarah saw the son whom Hagar, the Egyptian, had born to Abraham, playing. So the Hebrew for this one says mitzachek. It's again the same root. It's actually an unusual usage of this same root. And she said to Abraham, cast out the slave woman and her son, for the son of that slave woman shall not share in the inheritance with my son, Isaac. So already in this opening chapter of chapter 21, we've seen the word laughter a total of 3 times, not even counting Isaac's name. Sarah says that laughter will be brought to me, that people will laugh. The preposition is unclear, with me or at me. And then Yishmael is the name of this child, who's not named here, does something involving that same shoresh, but not quite right. Something is a little off in how he's doing it. And that causes Sarah to cast him out into the desert with his mother, and they are left to fend for themselves. It was one of the most stressful things to read about, is seeing this mother Hagar and her child Yishmael out in the desert, running out of water, based on, it seems, laughter. And so it seems like an overreaction. So I'd like to go back a little bit and look at what could have caused Sarah, our matriarch, to react so strongly to laughter or to some kind of play. In a moment when she seems joyful, she seems like she is thrilled to have her child even in her old age. And she says that people will laugh with her or at her, and maybe she expects that people will be surprised that at 90 she's got this little baby. So I want to go back to I'm going to go back to the very beginning of this Torah portion now. So if you're following in Etz Chaim, I will be on page 99. If you are following in a different book, we'll just be at Genesis chapter 18 now. And we're to set the scene. We are at the moment where Abraham is sitting at the entrance of his tent, and it is getting hot. He is recovering from his having circumcised himself. and these angels arrive. So now let's jump to verse 9, actually. So we're on page 101 at the very top. And these angels say to Abraham, "Where is your wife Sarah?" And he replied, "She's in the tent." They are in the tent. And one said, "I will return to you next year, and your wife Sarah will have a son." Sarah was listening at the entrance to the tent, which was behind him. So Sarah seems to be present and can hear these angels, but she may not be interacting with them directly. Now, Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in years. Sarah had stopped having the periods of women. And Sarah laughed to herself, saying, "Now that I am withered, I am to have enjoyment with my husband so old?" Then God said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh, saying, 'Shall I in truth bear a child, old as I am?' Is anything too wondrous for God? I will return to you at the same time next year, and Sarah shall have a son." Sarah lied, saying, "I didn't laugh," for she was frightened. And he replied, "You did laugh." It is actually unclear in the Hebrew whether that he replied as Abraham or if that's God, since God seems to be reacting to Sarah's laughter directly with Abraham. But I want to unpack this whole scene just a little bit. Because I think how we take Sarah's laughter is the key to understanding exactly what is going on for her in this story. Sarah hears this news that she's going to have a child, and she laughs to herself. The Hebrew says bikir ba, which could also be read as even in herself. She's really chuckling, is how I usually read this. She's really having an internal reaction. And as we said earlier, laughter could be about joy and surprise at good news, and it could be disbelief. God seems to react as though it's disbelief. But I will say I've usually read this as Sarah having a moment of surprise and delight. She's wanted this child for years. She was 10 years into her marriage and still with no child. She sent her maidservant Hagar to Abraham so that he could have a child, so that someone could care for him as he grew older. And she's wanted this child for herself. And so I have always read Sarah's laughter here as saying, "Really? I'm going to have this child? That's great." And God seems to be reading it as, "What? No, come on, God. There's no way. I can't have this child right now." And God seems to react to her in this way with God's read, and gets very frustrated and gets very upset and reacts to her laughter as though Sarah is saying that God can't actually do what God is promising to do, which we'll see in 2 chapters that God does. 3 chapters. We'll see that God does do what God has promised to do and gives her this child. And the fact that it says Sarah lied, saying, "I didn't laugh," is one of the reasons that I think that her laughter was actually surprise and delight and not mockery. I think that her saying, "I didn't laugh," was not saying, "I didn't laugh at all," but was saying, "God, I wasn't laughing at you. God, I didn't have a moment of lack of faith." But God takes it that way. And this is actually the only time, if we read that last verse as the "he replied, you did laugh," was God saying to Sarah. This is the only time that God speaks to Sarah. So we have this moment where her delight is misinterpreted as mockery. And then later, again in a moment of delight, when she has her son in her arms, she sees her teenage stepson, her husband's son from a different woman who's about a teenage, it's 13, 14 is the guess as to how old Ishmael is in that scene, doing something that looks like laughter but isn't. So again, in her joy, she sees mockery. And that is the reaction that causes the conflict that throws Hagar and Ishmael out into the desert, possibly to die. God saves them, but she throws them out. And I think that it's a key lesson for us right now, is recognizing that human beings laugh all the time, and we laugh for all kinds of reasons. We laugh when we're happy, we laugh when we're sad, we laugh to show that we're having an emotional reaction. And because laughter can signal so many different things, we don't always know what is causing someone else to laugh. A comedy show or watching a comedy, listening to a comedy, we can assume with the jokes that laughter is because of joy. But in the reality and the facts of life, as things go along in our lives, we don't always know. If others are laughing at something that they're noticing and surprised by in delight or anger. But we do see that if we treat others' laughter as mockery without confirming what they might be truly feeling, that ends up in an even deeper conflict. Sarah's joy being met with mockery leads to extreme anger. And I think we're all too familiar with that, where a moment of joy being misinterpreted by another leads to an extreme conflict. In truth, the children of Sarah and the children of Hagar have never gotten along since. We work hard to create peace, and there's a lot of strife and a lot of struggle and a lot of talking past one another between the children of Sarah and the children of Hagar. And if only we could understand, take a moment to see someone else having an experience and recognizing the joy, looking for the joy that they might be feeling, and celebrating that joy with them rather than reacting negatively. A blessing for us as we continue forward in a time where we are seeking news, and many of us may laugh no matter what results may be awaiting us, positively or negatively. Recognize that there's a human being behind the laughter. Recognize that laughter is often a sign of surprise, of hearing new information. And let that laughter be a moment of joy and see another's moment of joy. Let's make an effort not to turn laughter into mocking. I mentioned before that there are 11 total times that this root is mentioned in the Torah, that not including Yitzchak's name, Isaac's name. And after this scene where Yishmael is potentially mocking and Sarah's laughter is tamped down by it, every other time this root comes up again, it's the mockery version, not the joyful laughter version. And so let's make an effort to turn that back around. Let's make an effort to not mock and to laugh together. So my blessing for us this week is that we laugh good and bad, and recognize that laughter is a connection to one another. And let's find ways to enjoy and to laugh together as much as we can. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you all for joining me a little bit earlier than usual. I will be back at 9:30 again next week. And I will see you then at 10 o'clock today. We will be celebrating our bar mitzvah from our live stream service. And if you or any in your family have littles, I will be doing Tat Shabbat on Zoom in about 10 minutes. Shabbat Shalom, and I will see you again soon.